How do people in France go about getting weapons? It's not as easy to get them as it is in other countries like the United States.
Yes, of course, but you should remember that Strasbourg is a town on the border with Germany. It's not very far from Belgium, and we know that arms trafficking are very fluent, if I may say so, between Eastern Europe, Germany, and Brussels. So, of course, it is hard to get some weapons, but when we look at the profile of this attacker, so a former criminal, you know, we can suppose that he has some clues where to get weapons, as other terrorist attackers that committed attacks in Europe. Even the 13th of November Paris attacks, they fabricated their explosive in Europe, and they bought their arms in Brussels. Even for the Kouachi brothers who attacked Charlie Hebdo in the name of Al-Qaeda, they also bought their weapons in a border town next to Belgium. So this goes into the spectrum of arms trafficking in Europe, not specifically France.
We were talking before about the suspect being radicalized. Have we heard anything from the Islamic State group or other terrorist groups?
Nothing yet. Nothing yet. There's many fake news on the internet claiming this or claiming that, but up to this point, there's nothing claimed either by Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, or any other group regarding this, what happened in Strasbourg last night.
We've been talking a lot about this Fichier S, this watch list, risks to national security. This suspect was on that list. Many of the experts we've been speaking to said it's really more of a surveillance tool than an actual way to grab people before they commit acts. Are there things that could be done differently with the Fichier S?
It's not even a surveillance tool, because inside the Fichier S, you have many categories. So in some of the categories, it will lead to surveillance. But what it means, Fichier S in general, is that he was noticed by the authorities as someone who is potentially radicalized and potentially dangerous. So it's not a conviction. It's not. It doesn't mean that all the Fichier S will commit terror attacks or not. It doesn't. Just like signaling someone, you know. And as I told you, since the regular police raided his home yesterday morning, it means that he wasn't considered that dangerous. Otherwise, they would have done things another way. They wouldn't have raided him like this as a regular criminal. And today, because of all the layers of flaws that are piling since years, the scope of people who enter in the criteria of a Fichier S is getting wider and wider, which makes the job of the services much more difficult. Because today we are talking about 20,000 Fichier S. You know, like maybe a small minority of them are really dangerous. So now it goes for about human analysis, how all this information is going to be analyzed, because we are drowning in information, but what is lacking is good analysis. And as you should know, we are talking about human material, so much unpredictable, especially for those who decide to act alone. So not constituting a real crew to commit a terror attack. Because as you notice also, all the attempts to create terror attacks in Europe since years are failing, because the services are putting them down. And the attacks that are succeeding, between brackets, are attacks made by loners.
So what's your thought here then? Is this very likely, in your opinion, the act of a lone wolf, not someone who was?
I wouldn't say a lone wolf, because for me it doesn't exist, a lone wolf. When you look into terror attacks, you always see that there is ramifications for the arms, for the places to hide, etc., etc. There's no real lone wolf except the Breivik case, and it was the far right. It wasn't jihadi at all a few years ago. So it's getting more difficult, because yes, when you buy a knife or when you take a knife to attack someone, you are undetected. While when you try to buy arms, you could be detected, you see. And even if you want to go further in this, on this, even those who are trafficking arms wouldn't want to sell arms to a known terrorist. But they'll continue their business and sell criminals, because that's the way it goes. They want their business to be more prosperous. They don't want to be involved in terror attacks. So it's getting harder to get arms too, you see. But of course, there's no 100% non-failure terror prevention, either in Europe or in the world.
Wassim, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. So Wassim Nasr.